All right. Leaders put others first. Leaders are followers. And leaders help build trust within an organization. These three principles of leadership are available to any person. They can be developed. They're not inherent. It's not some special skill. Everyone can do them. And when they are applied, they can make a transformational difference for families, for organizations, for communities. Now, maybe you're a little skeptical, right? I'll throw my personal experience. 30 years in the United States Army. Having my first command involved 11 subordinate units, 3 of them commanded by people who outranked me. I deployed to Kosovo as a traditional National Guardsman who was the senior military advisor to a multinational military and civilian team advising a national level ministry. I was entrusted and honored to be entrusted by my community to serve in the state legislature. 8 years in the Iowa House, where I also served as an assistant leader. 8 years in the Iowa Senate, where I served as the chair of the Commerce Committee. That's all the big stuff. But I've also been the chair of my church's administrative council, and I've been on the board of directors of 2 local nonprofit organizations. I have seen these principles that I just talked about work. And I have seen where they were not applied, where they caused problems. So I'm just telling you, these principles are applicable across a wide range of areas. So what do I mean by leadership? The definition that I'll use is a leader provides direction, purpose, and motivation to improve the organization. That's what I'm going to use as leadership. There's a lot of different ways. That's how I'm going to use it in this presentation. So let's get into those details, right? And we'll do the first, the leadership paradox. Leaders are followers. When I bring that up, sometimes people, when I brought this up in the past, people have said, well, you must mean that in order to be a leader, you had to have been a follower, right? That's common perception. My mother was an elementary school teacher. I use present tense and past tense in a constructive way. I didn't say leaders were followers. I'm saying leaders are followers. How does that work, right? What am I talking about? But think about it. Every organization has people who are at the front line doing what needs to be done, right? And I'll just use, police officers, the retail clerk at a store, a teacher at a college. Right? They all have some degree of leadership, but they're the frontline people. They're the ones making the difference. That's why the purpose of the organization, that's where that interface is, right? Do they operate independently? No. They all have somebody that they report to or they're providing information to, somebody who has responsibility, right? It could be the department chair for the teacher. It's the police sergeant for the police officer, right? And it could be the store manager for the clerk. Well, those people are in a position of leadership. Therefore, they're the leaders. And that's where it stops. That's the culmination of what leadership is, right? Obviously, no. Because do they have supervisors or do they have people that they report to? Yeah. Store manager may report to the regional director. The department chair has to report to the dean. The police sergeant has to report to the police lieutenant, right? And it cascades up. They have to be followers of that higher level person. Leaders are followers. And so you may be thinking, okay, fine, yeah, down at the middle level and lower level, that's true, but what about the top, right? What about the CEO? Or what about the president of the college? Or what about, where am I at? Those other positions, right? The very, very top, the police chief. They're leaders, they don't have to follow anyone, right? They do. I mean, if they want to keep their jobs, they do, because they all have a board of directors as the president or a CEO. And the police chief has like a city council. Can they all do anything that they want? No, they have to do some degree of following. Now, that guidance that they get tends to be a little more vague and a little, not as fully direct, but they are leaders and they must be followers. Leaders are followers. And the beauty of the system that we have, those boards of directors or those city council members, are they the ultimate leaders? No. City council kind of reports to citizens. Boards of directors report to stock shareholders. Leaders are followers. We are all in this together. So leaders must be good followers in order to be good leaders. I'm seeing some shaking, nodding of heads. That's good, right? All right, you bought into that. Leaders put others first. How do you succeed as a leader? The key to leadership is you have to put others first. And you may be thinking, they have all that responsibility and the way to succeed is to put others first? Yes. Simon Sinek, who's author of several books, one of his famous books is Leaders Eat Last. He made an observation that the Marine Corps, you have the last person to eat is the most senior person. In the Army, the last person to eat, the leader eats with their subordinates. And the last person to eat is the most senior person. Why? They're putting others first. In order for people to know that they are being led appropriately, they need to know their leader is doing something that puts them first. Right? Okay, so that's the military, or that's, happy talk by a nice author. Let's go back 2,000 years. Book of Matthew, chapter 20. What does Jesus tell his disciples about? He has a parable. The last shall be first. The first shall be last. And he tells his disciples, he who would be chief among you must be servant of all. This is a widespread principle that we just don't necessarily think about. Leaders put others first. I'm sensing some concurrence here. You see where this is going, right? So, okay, leaders build trust, and you can build trust in a measurable way. For an organization to succeed, it must trust in each other, and it must trust in the leader. So how does the leader build trust, and how do you measure that trust? You can break out the calculators because there's a formula associated with this. You didn't know you were going to have to do that today, right? But it's a simple set of characteristics, right? So first, there are three things to help build trust that the leaders must exhibit. The first, I'm going to keep this simple for everybody. These are all C's. The first is character. A leader must have character. Character is basically exhibiting good ethical behavior, setting a good example, abiding by the rules, right? Every organization has values. They may be written or they may be unwritten. This is one of the nice parts of having organizations identify what values are. Because if the leader is not abiding by those values, there will be no trust. If others are not abiding by those values, there will not be trust. Okay? So leaders must have character. And it could be from 0 to 10. You can rate your leaders on a 0 to 10 scale on character, right? Because we all know there's instances where that leader exhibits 0 character, right? Does that undermine trust? Yeah. The second piece of this puzzle is competence. Kind of goes without saying, for most jobs, you want somebody who's competent, right? Competence. The individual and the leader must demonstrate competence. Where this gets tricky is the higher up that one goes in a hierarchy, the wider the responsibilities and the less that they're going to know. The CEO of that retail chain has probably not been a retail clerk, and the truck driver delivering the materials, and the electrician making sure that everything is operating, and the marketing person, and the human relations person, right? The leader isn't necessarily expected to know all the details of that, but to know enough to provide guidance that people can trust that the decisions that are being made are based on sound basis, right? Because sometimes it's not, I'll use the Will Rogers line, it's not what the person doesn't know that concerns me, it's what they know for sure that just ain't so. Competence, not being too overconfident in your competence. So that's the second characteristic, and that can be rated on a 0 to 10 scale as well. And then the third piece is care. Yeah, you're hearing from a military guy, 30, care, a soft, warm care. The leader must care to build trust. Why? There's a saying, my parents may have even shared this with me at some point, that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Can you trust someone that doesn't care for you? No. Leaders must care, right? And you can rate that on a 0 to 10 scale as well. So we got 3 separate 0 to 10 scales for those of you trying to keep track here. You could get 10 times 10, or 10 plus 10 and 10. But the calculation, the formula for this is not addition, it's multiplication. 10 times 10 times 10 would be 1,000, right? But here's where it gets tricky. Where's the basis? 0. What happens when you multiply a number by 0? 0. Somebody achieves a 0 in one of those 3 categories, trust is completely eliminated, right? So that calculation of character times competence times care builds trust. So, to review, leaders build trust. Leaders put others first. And leaders achieve all of those elements that come together. All of these characteristics are available. There's none of this that is super beyond the capability of any individual to achieve, right? Putting others first. So, go forward. I've given you these tools. They can apply at a small organization within a family or in an international affairs. That's what leadership is. You now have those tools. It's time for you to go out and apply them. Thank you.